This morning, a startling update from ERCOT and the solutions on the way. Bitcoin, electric cars, artificial intelligence, and an industrial overhaul all may mean by the next decade, Texas will need to double the amount of energy currently going through the grid.
Trying to build the infrastructure that is needed to support that type of growth.
We talk to industry experts and explore the new programs meant to stabilize the grid to prevent a catastrophe during winter storms and scorching hot summer temperatures.
Communities start getting cut off. Our disadvantaged communities tend to be at the top of that list on what gets cut off.
The need for more power and the energy transition coming to Texas right now on Lone Star Politics.
This is Lone Star Politics from NBC5 and the Dallas Morning News.
Long before the heat of a Texas summer sets in, ERCOT, the manager of the state's largest power grid, has already issued warnings about higher demand potentially causing a strain on the grid. And any mention of that haunts many Texans, bringing up memories of the deadly power outage in the winter of 2021. Thanks for joining us. I'm Phil Prazan from NBC5.
And I'm Gromer Jeffers, political writer with the Dallas Morning News. This morning, we're taking a closer look at the huge effort to bring more power to Texas and what it means for the average consumer.
Beyond what the everyday Texan uses, there are three new areas of concern for ERCOT. Heavy industry moving from engine power to electric power, artificial intelligence data centers, and Bitcoin miners. All will use vast amounts of energy, raising the yearly demand forecast from ERCOT 37%.
The good news is that the state of Texas and the federal government are investing big bucks to keep the lights on in Texas.
We'll get to that in a moment. First, at ERCOT's most recent Board of Directors meeting, CEO Pablo Vegas laid out what's coming in the next few years and how ERCOT is preparing.
The tools and the parts are all here for us to be able to respond quickly. We have all of the resource capabilities to do that in ERCOT. It's a matter of enacting and getting the engine turning and developing these resources here.
ERCOT provides a 24/7 snapshot of everything from current conditions to a breakdown of how energy is being generated by the state. Here's a look at the fuel mix Friday afternoon when solar use was at 24%, wind at 15%, and natural gas at nearly 45%.
Last year, Texas voters approved a new $10 billion Texas Energy Fund. It provides grants and loans to build, maintain, and modernize power facilities in Texas. The Public Utility Commission of Texas set out new rules last week and will begin accepting applications next month. Companies can receive around 10% reimbursement for building new projects. Plants must have a capacity of at least 100 megawatts or enough energy to power at least 20,000 homes and be completed in just a few years by June 1st of 2026. This was a priority for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Earlier, he said the goal was to build more dispatchable plants. Those are more traditional plants like natural gas, not renewables. He spoke at the Texas Public Policy Foundation earlier this year and said even after this, they'll need to do more.
We have overbuilt wind, we've overbuilt solar at the cost of natural gas. And so when it's cold on a winter night and a storm by the name of Uri comes in and the wind's not blowing, the sun's not out, we didn't have enough power. And people died in that storm. And I made a promise to myself, and the senators stood together, we will never allow this to happen again. We've replaced the PUC members. We've replaced the ERCOT members. We've passed strong legislation, but we still need more natural gas.
The program is now reality, but will power companies build new plants?
We spoke with Mark Bell from the Association of Electric Companies of Texas, the industry group representing NRG, Encore, and others.
There's a lot of growth coming into Texas, which means, we're working diligently and trying to build the infrastructure that is needed to support that type of growth.
We also have the Public Utilities Commission just released their
rules, right? That for the Texas Energy Fund,
Yep.
the state of Texas will help offer 10% low interest loans, and then in between 6 and 7% on the construction of some of these new power plants. The basic question for that is that enough to get more power plants that we need?
Well, and it is a tool in the toolbox. Over the last two sessions, the legislature has passed several measures that help incentivize the competitive forces within the wholesale generation market. One of which is the Texas Energy Fund, for dispatchable generation. Its portal launched this week, and there's a great expectation that it'll be oversubscribed, which is wonderful.
Is everybody doing enough to meet that? Are there any reasons to be alarmed about what's needed in the future?
The biggest challenge that I think we're going to have is probably in the 1 to 7 year period, right?
And why is that?
Well, it just takes a while to get these projects online. We've got data centers and other large consumption projects coming online that can come online in a year. And, typically, it takes us, anywhere from it takes 2 to 5 to 6 years to bring on transmission and distribution, transmission, especially large projects. And so that's the challenge that we have, is that the consumption is coming online faster than we can meet the demand. And so, everybody's doing their best. And I do think that, it'll be enough in the long term.
And what does this mean in the long term for price for consumers and what they'll pay?
Well, it's a really great question. When you look at the renewables, those are the fuel source of those is free. And so it certainly levels out the cost to consumers to make it more affordable and to keep those prices affordable. Innovation within the retail sector and in other parts of our industry also bring down costs. The affordability question is always first and foremost on our mind. But second to that is reliability. And reliability, consumers want reliability in their electric systems. And we think that they are willing to pay for reliability at an affordable price. And so, these projects cost money, and the consumer bears those costs, and we're trying to keep them as reasonable as possible.
There's a lot of talk and money going towards the energy transition, right? Does your industry feel like that is, more energy is just more energy, or do you think that the focus is too much on renewables?
Oh, we're all of the above. We need it all.
The power supply impacts all of us.
To learn more about this concern and what you can do to help, we talked to Professor Ed Anderson from UT Austin, who specializes in energy supply chains.
Actually, normally the worst time of the year is summer, because hopefully we don't get too many situations where we get a week of snow. But in the summer, everybody gets hot equally, and transmission lines can't transmit as much power. And that's also our wind turbines don't work quite as well either, because we don't have as much wind.
When you hear an update from ERCOT about the data centers coming in, new electric cars on the grid, the industrial sector going from, your normal combustion engines to electrification, how big of a deal is all of that happening all at once?
It's a big deal in the sense that if you were looking at the increase in the projection of demand that was done by ERCOT last week, it's about 110 to 150 gigawatts. And most of that, not all of it, but a lot of it is driven by that. What makes it even more interesting in kind of a scary way is that the AI data centers, and AI is driving most of that. Crypto's kind of staying constant or dropping a little bit because they have better algorithms, but AI is burgeoning. So that's a major driver, and EVs are a major driver, but our predictions about how much more energy they're actually going to use is all over the place. I usually estimate about 10% for each of those in the next 10 years, but honestly, you will see other projections that are either lower or far higher, like doubling. And so one of the things that ERCOT has to manage is they have to be a bit on the conservative side because they don't know what's going to happen.
We're heading into summer. Should Texans be concerned about the resilience and stability of the grid?
Yes. I mean, ERCOT last week, as you know, was issuing a warning with respect to brownouts and also energy interruptions. And let's see, how warm was last week? Got up to 90, right? And
Yeah, well,
we all know what the summers are like in Texas.
Yeah.
So people should be concerned. Can people do anything about it, or is this all over our heads? And
it's mostly over our heads. So as an individual, now if we all work together and, for instance, make sure we're not using power when we're not at home, that will definitely help. But one person alone, they can't do much. What they can do, of course, is, programmable thermostats, which I think people are familiar with. And also, they may or may not want to do this because it's expensive, but modern air conditioners and heat pumps, even the last couple of years, are more efficient than those of 10 years ago. And that will help with bills, at least.
So practically a guaranteed job for the next 5 years, and you're learning a trade while you're doing it.
Young Texans plugging into the future. Still ahead, how these students are benefiting from new renewable energy in Texas. And just how much money is headed here to make the power supply more secure. A look at where billions of dollars will be spent ahead on Lone Star Politics. It's not just the state throwing money into Texas for power. A lot of projects are coming from the Biden administration. So far, nearly $150 billion. Some projects will use power, like $78 billion for new semiconductor and electric projects, but then $18 billion for clean energy manufacturing and infrastructure, plus $49 billion for renewable power. And when the CEO of ERCOT gave his update, he said the Inflation Reduction Act's efforts to bring more energy to Texas has helped the grid. Overall, one of those programs will get more solar panels on top of North Texas homes, and we got to look at how it happens. This class of apprentice electricians are well on their way to a profession. At the training center for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 20, more than 400 students learn how power systems work and how to install them in homes and businesses. This group is in their second year. In year 5, they learned solar panels and batteries from Rhett Glover.
They had a hard time finding a job just like I did, and so they joined up and they're making good money. It's practically a guaranteed job for the next 5 years, and you're learning a trade while you're doing it.
He jokes he was a professional college student before becoming an electrician in 2011. Now he teaches future journeymen.
And they fed my family, and I appreciate it. And if I were to do it all over again, I would definitely do this right out of high school.
The next 5 years will bring a lot more work installing solar panels and batteries. Harris County led a coalition which just received part of a $7 billion program to bring renewable energy to low-income homes. $250 million from that program through the Environmental Protection Agency will go to areas in Dallas County, Tarrant County, and others. Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and President Biden signed it into law 2 years ago, in part to transition the country to renewable and green energy.
Nationally, it's been going on for a few years, but we're not seeing it in Texas until there's federal money funding it.
President of Local 20 in North Texas, Price Warwick III, says some of that federal money will go to these apprentices as they install solar panels. Part of the deal for the money is they have to buy parts made in America, and they have to hire local people from certified programs like this.
You know, when that peak demand in the summer hits and communities start getting cut off, our disadvantaged communities tend to be at the top of that list on what gets cut off. So it's going to help keep them from being disrupted.
Warwick tells me more energy is more energy, and he sees the program as helping low-income homes stay online in tough times, and he sees future jobs for the union.
But it's going to ease the demand and the grid stress by distributing generation in small bits throughout the state.
While the Biden administration is speeding up efforts for renewable energy, its critics say they're slowing down offshore oil and gas leasing, which may mean higher prices at the pump. North Texas Congressman Jake Ellzey, a member of the House Appropriations Committee, says more gas-powered plants are needed.
I don't like windmills myself. They don't provide the power that they said they would. They are not renewable, and here's why. When those blades fail and they have a shelf life, you can't recycle them. You have to bury them. So I think a lot of this is a farce. Gas and hydrocarbons are still the way of the future until the market works itself out, and so does technology, that we can find better ways to do it. We're still the cleanest in the world, and right now it's not dependable if you're depending on renewables.
And Gromer, this seems to be a story about growth and then the people in charge trying to keep up the infrastructure with that growth.
Exactly. I mean, if Texas is going to remain the place where people are coming here, thousands, whatever the number is, daily, then they're going to have to keep up with that demand and that growth. And the best way to do it is what's being debated constantly. And you see this push and pull between renewable and you know, traditional energy sources. And you're going to continue to see that in this period until we get to where we need to be.
How big of a fight was this in the legislature for the Texas Energy Fund? Because this is a government program encouraging, putting its thumb on the scale, the critics would say, of the free market.
Yeah, and usually in Republican-controlled legislatures, right, it's all about the free market, and you want to have less government or less agencies fooling around with the free market. But in this case, I think what happened in 2021, the winter storm and all of that, was a wake-up call. And they have to do anything that's necessary, anything they can to make sure that doesn't happen again, and that Texas has the power it needs, particularly with all the growth that's occurring.
We continue monitoring the tensions on some college and university campuses because of the demonstrations. A look at your political headlines next on Lone Star Politics. New this week, Attorney General Ken Paxton is one of 5 Republican attorneys general suing the feds over new rules expanding Title IX protections for trans athletes. Some of those AGs say they will not enforce the new rules. Paxton wants to stop what it part bars schools from banning trans athletes and teachers from using school facilities and pronouns that align with their gender identity. Paxton says it's too, quote, radical. Others say it goes beyond what the law allows the feds to do. The Education Department has not yet responded in court.
President Biden will deliver the keynote address on anti-Semitism at the annual Holocaust Remembrance Ceremony. Holocaust survivors will join members of Congress and the administration on Capitol Hill this Tuesday. The president's remarks will come amid a rise in anti-Semitism, including on some college campuses where protests over the Israeli-Hamas war continue to play out.
So these protests, do you think that they will continue in Texas? I know that there's probably going to go around all across the country, but what will we see in Texas, you think?
Yeah, they'll continue in Texas. At what level, though, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be like in the Northeast and other places. But we got 2 national conventions coming up, so I suspect that protesters are gearing up for that. and they will continue to ramp up what's going on college campuses, because as long as the cameras are there and law enforcement's there now, it's going to happen.
So Texans went to the polls Saturday, May 4th elections, to see complete results, including races for mayor, city council, bond proposals, and those brand new appraisal board of governor positions. Just log on to nbcdfw.com or dallasnews.com. That's all the time we have. Stay tuned for Meet the Press with Kristen Welker.
Thanks for joining us this Sunday. Happy Cinco de Mayo, and we'll see you next Sunday for more Lone Star Politics. What are you drinking today, bud?
No comment.